Hello, everyone. So today I'm going to cover a topic, a technique that we can call universal in survival. It's a knowledge that is part of the fundamentals and yet is rarely addressed. So the advantage with what I'm going to present to you today is that you're going to discover an abundant source of food all over the planet. That's why we call it a universal technique. So we're going to see together how to prepare a meal that could be used alone or as a side dish. You'll see it's knowledge that will allow you to regain strength fairly quickly in a degraded situation, for example. So this technique is that of the harvesting and preparation of tree cambium. I'm going to present the entire technique from A to Z because we hear about it from time to time. But in reality, there are few people who have eaten cambium. So for the demonstration, I am going to take samples from the standing trees. So for the sensitive ones, among, that these trees, as evidenced by the markings, will be cut within a week. Indeed, at the moment, wood is very, very expensive. And it creates, let's say, a windfall effect among the foresters who cut down a lot of trees currently. So generally know also that trees recover very well as long as you do not take a sample from the entire periphery of the trunk. So beforehand, you need to have basic notions of the structure of a tree trunk. So we have the first bark or external bark. Then we have the second bark or inner bark. The external bark, we will also call it the suber, and the internal bark, the leber. Then a little deeper, you'll have the cambium. This will interest us in particular. We will need to locate it and know how to extract it. It's a simplification of the structure of a tree trunk, but in survival, in reality, it will be more than enough for us. You should know that the cambium can be considered as the vascular system of the tree. So first step now, we are going to peel a part of the tree, a part of the cork of the bark, therefore. So if we want to keep the tree alive, we will take about 1/3 of its circumference. It won't really suffer from it. So you can do it with a machete, with a good knife like this one, or with a hatchet. Also, so now I'm starting to get to the tender part, but it's not the cambium. So this is a classic confusion. In short, not too attacked anyway. Here we are on the leber, so the second bark. So we're going to clear as much of the first bark as you'll see to then have strips that we're going to make, which should be flexible. To be able to peel them off, so now that I've roughly cleared all the first bark with a knife, well sharpened, I'm going to remove the last part of the bark that would bother me for the samples. So more or less, the better you do it, the better your cambium will be in reality. There you go. So now we are going to proceed with the sample collection. I will show you the technique where we clearly push the knife into the wood, into the softest part of the wood called the object, and you will circumscribe the cutting window over there. Then we are going to make strips. We are going to make them quite wide. I'm going to make about 2 siupuan for the sample collection. So I'm going to make 3. That will do. Now we are going to collect the sample So it's spring. So this is the perfect conditions because you had the rise of SAP in winter. It's a bit more difficult, but it's also possible. So this is a part that I'm going to recover. You see, it's quite fast. So I'm not going to take a large quantity, obviously, because it's a demonstration. And then I'm going to show you the preparation. So there we clearly see the ASAP. So these strips, we are going to keep them. We are going to treat them a bit after. But before that, we're going to get the best of the cambium. It's here. This is really the best. So this part, it can really be eaten directly because it's very little fibrous. It's gelatinous, so raw. You have all the properties of the cambium, the vitamins, the minerals. You have lots of things in there. So, in our regions, we can consider that the cambium of all deciduous trees are edible, with the exception of fruit trees at certain seasons that can contain small amounts of potassium cyanide. So it's toxic. I also avoid robinia. It's the acacia, the false acacia, which contains a toxin too, Robin. We can focus on elm. All birches are good. Lime is very good. The poplars, the different poplars, the maples, the soils, and especially the conifers like pines, with a very important exception, yew, which is really deadly. So now we will recover the cambium on the strips that I cut out earlier. So this is the biggest part to recover. So really, you have to take the top layer. You still start to get some biomass there. Let's go. I put the whole cambium to boil. So as far as the nutritional value of the cambium is concerned, when eaten raw, it has proteins, sugars, vitamins, particularly vitamin C, and micronutrients. We can't give the exact values because depending on the season, the tree, and the quality of the sample, you won't get the same values. Among the richest, you have the pines and birches, which are very, very good. There are also qualities associated with the consumption of cambium, such as strengthening the immune system. So it makes it a very good dietary supplement for occasional survival in particular. In terms of calories now, you have a food that is more caloric than the potato. So it's a very interesting food during the winter in particular, where it is more difficult to find energy resources. To be effective in survival, you must not spend half the day there. As usual, I advise you to do some tests. Do it at least once or twice so as to master the technique well. It will allow you to really have a head start the day you need it. Having a head start in a complicated environment, don't forget that it can radically change the situation. So I'm going to give you some benchmarks in terms of preparation time in a survival context where the objective will be to restore yourself, regain strength, and start again. You will have around 15-20 minutes for the harvest collection. You will have an hour of preparation, a maximum of 30 minutes of cooking, and about 15 minutes for the meal. So that gives you a 2-hour break and you will be able to leave markedly strengthened. Depending on the variety or season, it can be slightly bitter. In that case, you can change the cooking water at 15 minutes and put the skin in 2 waters. Well, you have to know that at 15 minutes, boiled for 15 minutes, the cambium is already quite edible, but at 30 minutes, it becomes very, very digestible. Normally, the cooking water should be pink. If it's really blood red, it's because you've put in too much phloem. There's not enough cambium and too much phloem. Well, phloem is full of cellulose. It's not digestible, and it offers nothing in terms of energy for humans. Tastes vary based on the tree type. For example, birch is a bit bitter with a cambium that's not very abundant. You have chestnut, which is sweet with a cambium that is moderately abundant, not very abundant, depending on the seasons. The best ones in general are the breads that really have a beautiful cambium, very nutritious, and that can be found all over the planet. So this could be advantageously accompanied by wild herbs, but here I'm really doing it the simplest way so you can see the technique. So here you see in half an hour of gathering, I really have more than enough to eat because you have to know that it's very, very nourishing. We don't eat a lot of cambium. So the ideal period for the recovery of cambium is spring because you have the rise of SAP, and at that time the bark peels off very easily, but it can be done year-round. For the pines, you will need to focus on the subjects that are between 30 and 40 cm minimum in diameter. Because on the small pines whose bark is not yet formed, you will have a cambium that is very bitter, which is almost inedible. On the other hand, with deciduous trees, you can focus on subjects that are between 8 and 20 cm in diameter. These are the best for cambium recovery. Here, I cook them for about 20 minutes. An additional 10 minutes would have further tenderized it. It's still a bit fibrous, still a bit of bread taste. while after half an hour there was no taste at all, up to my expectations. And there we have it. The video is now coming to an end. I hope you enjoyed it and found it informative. Feel free to give a thumbs up, and I'll see you soon for a future video.